Russia is claiming victory in the worldwide race for a coronavirus vaccine. The government is clearing a vaccine for use despite not putting it through a third round of testing on humans. President Vladimir Putin insists the vaccine is safe and says one of his daughters has been inoculated. Mass inoculations could begin as early as October. Freelance reporter Dan Ashby is in Moscow with more on today's announcement. So Dan, what can you tell us more about this vaccine?
Hannah, President Putin says this is an important step for the world, and he's so sure about this vaccine that he's even tested it on his own daughter, says she remains stable, she was stable, reacted fine, and he has trust in it, and that Russia has done the necessary tests. But the controversial thing here is that Russia has leapt ahead in registering this vaccine, even though those all-important, wide-scale human testing has not occurred. So we've spoken to the Association of Clinical Trials Organizations in Russia, a major scientific body here. They say that they believe it's only been tested on around 76 people. That's the numbers they've got. And by this stage, it should have been tested on tens of thousands of people. And just to give you an outline of their concern, they said we have nothing to be proud of in Russia. It's more of a shame that the country demonstrates it's willing to violate common rules and cut corners just to demand rewards. Of course, the government, though, denies that. They say they have simply fast-tracked regulations because it is ready and it is worthwhile given the scale of the pandemic. But they've given it a name already. They've launched a website. It will be called the Sputnik vaccine, like the famous satellite that was launched. And I think just like the satellite, half the world will wake up being hugely excited about it, and the other half of the world will be looking at this with concern.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What's the international reaction?
Well, it's been interesting. It's been so mixed. On the one hand, you have the World Health Organization really raising eyebrows, saying, look, this shouldn't be happening. You have to complete those phases before you register for the safety and effectiveness of these vaccines. You also have a lot of skepticism from the US, and I think Britain will be concerned too, given that just a few weeks ago they were talking about alleged hacking of their vaccines from Russian cyber criminals. But then you get the likes of the Philippines coming forward and saying, hey, look, we want to be part of mass trials, send the free vaccines over to us. And this website going live saying that countries such as South Korea, India, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, they all want to be or are showing interest in both production and trials of this vaccine. So a huge story for Russia. Controversial that it's leapt ahead with this without completing the trials, but a major moment. And I think Russia is saying to the world, we think it's justified.
Okay, Dan Ashby in Moscow, thanks for your report. We appreciate it. For more on what we just heard, I'm joined by Dr. Zain Shagla. He's an infectious diseases specialist at St. Joseph's Healthcare in Hamilton, but joins us from Mississauga. So thank you for joining us on the program. Let me just get your thoughts. What do you think of this vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge concern here. The phase 3 trials, which are completely missing in this vaccine, are what really show this vaccine is safe and what shows this vaccine is actually effective. All they've done to date is injected a number of people and seen if their immune response was normal, but that's not enough to say that this is a vaccine that's effective in large-scale populations or safe in large-scale populations. So there's a significant concern here if this is being rolled out to people without that type of consent. And, there is the possibility that this vaccine doesn't work or it even causes harm, which just puts us back even further.
So we heard in that report that it's likely only been tested on about 76 people, including supposedly the president's daughter. I'm not sure what you think of that. But when it goes through the approval process, it has to be tested on tens of thousands of people. Is that right?
Yeah, so essentially we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. So phase 1 is just saying that the dose is right and it's relatively safe in a small number of people. Phase 2 is you're giving the doses to more healthy volunteers. You're seeing their response that it works, but it's still a small number. So if you talk about 76, if you saw a very major side effect in 0.5% of the population that gets this, that 0.5% would have a significant side effect or could die from the vaccine, not that that's ever been shown, you need to give it to 200 people to actually see that side effect once. So, a trial of 76 people, it's very dangerous to scale this up to an entire population without doing those trials of tens of thousands to get some of those rarer but very significant side effects to show up.
So let's talk about phase 3 because it hasn't gone through the phase 3 process. How important is that phase to the approval process?
It's huge, and this is what the Moderna vaccine is going through, the Pfizer vaccine is going through, the Oxford and AstraZeneca vaccine are going through. You have to scale it up to a large number of people. We do these phase 2 trials, the prior trials, looking for an immune response to the vaccine, but that doesn't necessarily always add up to protection. So what we may see from some of these phase 3 trials of the drugs that we're very interested in right now is that their effects aren't replicated when you do a large-scale study, or there is a side effect from the immune activation of these vaccines. So they're hugely important. I mean, this is the basic standard for any pharmaceutical compound that comes to our market, that it's gone through this safety and efficacy analysis. So, this is just a big cut to the scientific method and to the safety of our patients and to our public health systems.
Well, it sounds like then what Russia is doing is using its people as the phase 3 trial of this vaccine then.
Yeah, and how we register phase 3 participants is we give them informed consent. We tell them that we don't know all the risks and benefits. We watch them appropriately. We have very, very strict guidelines into monitoring them. We monitor for every symptoms. We register them for their long-term follow-up and follow them up to a certain period. We screen them for any other issues that might be an issue with the vaccine. It doesn't sound like any of this is being done. If you register the vaccine and you allow it to be given to people in mass quantities, you're kind of doing what we call phase 4, which is the real-world analysis of what's going to happen. But without that phase 3 data, those strict kind of very controlled populations, you're not going to see if there's a problem that's going to happen early. You might see it much later down the line.
What do you think of the fact that other countries are saying, yeah, sure, let us try this vaccine as well?
Yeah, I mean, the vaccine issue has become such a politicized and an economic issue in a sense, where you have a number of countries already bidding for vaccines that haven't gone through their phase 3 trials. There are probably a lot of low and middle income countries that have been left out of some of those vaccine wars and vaccine talks, that, getting to anything on the market or getting to trial anything on the market is something that's appropriate in that sense. And so I think that's the problem here is that, there's no huge guarantees that if a vaccine comes to the market, it's going to be distributed equitably amongst the entire population of the earth. And so you have countries that are looking at a target and saying, hey, wait, we lost on these other 4 ones. Let's go to this one and see what happens, just so that we have a foot in the game when the time comes. Okay.
Dr. Zane Chegla, I'm sorry I'm going to have to end it there. I could continue on, but we appreciate your insights.
All the best. Take care.
Dr. Zane Chegla is an infectious disease specialist at St. Joseph's Healthcare.
In the global race for a coronavirus vaccine, Russia said today it's already won, even though it hasn't completed phase 3 trials. That's not slowing Russia down, which today registered and approved for use its vaccine while continuing to conduct human trials. Russia already has a rollout plan. It's ambitious and fast. To start giving the vaccine to medical personnel this month, mass production in September, mass distribution in October. Before today's announcement, I spoke with Kirill Dmitriev, head of the Russian government fund backing the vaccine.
We'll have 30 million doses, so we'll be working based on this number.
So you want to vaccinate 30 million people this year in Russia?
We'll produce up to 30 million doses of vaccine, and then, it will be up to people who wants to be vaccinated. But in principle, yes, we can vaccinate tens of millions of people in Russia this year.
Scientists, including from the WHO, are urging caution, saying only extensive and prolonged testing can determine if a vaccine is effective and safe. U.S. officials have accused Russia of hacking vaccine research, claims Russia vigorously deny.
I think those accusations are by some of the people who are afraid of Russian having sort of a Sputnik moment with a vaccine, of being the first out there when there is nobody else out there.
The vaccine is officially called Sputnik V for vaccine, and Russian officials say there is already strong international interest to acquire it. Now, Russia has not published much data about the vaccines. Russian officials say that data will be published, but scientists, including Dr. Fauci, say they hope that Russia and China, which is also working on a vaccine, are carrying out all the precautions that are required to produce this medicine.
We want to get right to that breaking news in the international race for a COVID-19 vaccine. This morning, Russia making that major announcement approving the first coronavirus vaccine in the world. Ian Pannell is in London, has the latest for us. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, Robin. That's right. A major declaration from the Russians saying they'll start mass vaccination by October. President Putin even saying one of his daughters has already been given this vaccine that they're naming Sputnik. This is a nod, of course, to their first in the space race during the Cold War. But for many, it's still too early and potentially dangerous to declare victory in the hunt for a vaccine right now. Breaking news in the race for a COVID-19 vaccine. Russia just announcing they've approved the first vaccine in the world and will start administering it in days, despite heavy criticism it hasn't been properly tested.
We expect registration of the first COVID vaccine in the world. We believe it's a great step for humanity forward, and we believe it's a very important step for the whole world to fight COVID.
The vaccine said to be based on the same technology that helped them previously create an Ebola vaccine and will go to key workers like teachers and medics first. President Putin claiming it's passed all necessary testing, but many scientists inside and outside Russia very concerned over what they see as a hasty approach with just a small number of study volunteers. Russia essentially declaring victory before finishing its final stage 3 trials.
I think in the United States we would demand a much bigger trial to be confident that the vaccine was safe in the sense that it didn't have an uncommon side effect and at least effective to some extent in the short term.
All this as Oxford, Moderna, Pfizer and others are moving forward with their phase 3 trials with at least 30,000 volunteers. US health experts optimistic. Speaking to ABC News, Dr. Anthony Fauci says he's hopeful that a vaccine will show to be effective in trials and authorized by the FDA within months, possibly as soon as the end of the year.
I believe there's quite a good chance that we will, and that should take probably by the end of this calendar year with vaccine available as we go into 2021.
Well, US Operation Warp Speed is putting billions of dollars behind vaccine makers so the companies can ramp up production and run clinical trials at the same time. US regulators are insistent that there'll be no corners cut when it comes to testing, making it safe to take. And for many, TJ, that is a key difference between what America is doing and what the Russians have just announced.
All right, Ian, thank you.